Hi, baby boomer fans. We are Jackie and Janine, the Pfeiffer sisters, and love to talk about the 1950s, inviting you to reminisce with us as we explore experiences of that decade.
We chronicled the distinct memories of our childhood in our book, While the Windmill Watched, a slice of rural America in the 1950s, which takes you on a notably historic journey through that often forgotten decade. We also want to hear about your experiences during the 1950s. We will feature guests whose special stories of that decade will bring to mind magical moments of reflection, some with tears, some with smiles, but above all, a good dose of laughter.
We would like you to chat with us as we bring to mind the sights and sounds so familiar to that time in history. Grab your favorite malt or Green River. Make sure you are wide awake and get ready to be inspired about the 1950s. Welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat. Hello, everyone. Oh, my goodness. Have you been to some Memorial Day parades this past weekend? If you have or if you haven't, you will be excited to hear from our guest today because she can really relate to being in parades and the treasured story that she has, how she got to that point will really pique your interest in this fun chat today. And Jackie, this is number 90. This is number 90, and we keep moving forward. And we want to let people know that when it comes to number 100, which is a few weeks from now, that Jackie, you and I, plan to have just kind of a review of what's all happened to you and to me as sisters in the life of developing our book and everything that's happened since then. And now it's in the production of being a film. And golly, what will happen after that?
I don't know, but right now I've got some housekeeping things to do. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our chat. Please take a look at the bottom of the screen. You'll see a purple banner, and it has on it www.whilethewindmillwatch.com. That is our website, and there you will find all sorts of information about the book, the authors, the vendors, the events, and the 1950s Fun Chat. As Janine mentioned, we have quite a number on the Fun Chat, quite a number of fun chats, and you'll be able to see them and view them on the website. Just click on 1950s Fun Chat and enjoy. Also, upper right-hand corner, you'll see the picture of our book. And that book features a beautiful North Dakota sunset, which wraps around the cover, front and back. And then you'll also see a little tiny white spot on the bottom. Okay, that little white spot is a very important little white spot because we published our book in 2021. 2022, that little white spot indicates that we won a special award. It is an independent press award as a distinguished favorite in the category of regional nonfiction. So our little book is so glad to have that little seal in the front. Right. The next year, we were asked to if our book could be the basis of a movie. So we agreed to that. And then this year, we actually saw the script for the first draft of the script, that is, of the movie, While the Windmill Watched. So stay tuned, and maybe Janine will tell you a bit more about that later.
Yes.
But Let's go. Without further ado, as they say on TV, I would like to introduce you to our next guest. At age 17, Joyce Rice was honored by being named the best baton twirler on the planet, after defeating 20,000 other young women. She's from rural Greenfield, Iowa, but now calls Magnolia, Texas, home. Joyce graduated from Greenfield High School in 1959 and Iowa State University with a degree in home economics education. Thanks to her baton twirling talents, she received a full ride scholarship and the honor of being the featured twirler of Iowa State University. Joyce appeared as the national champion on the TV show I've Got a Secret, which featured a panel of celebrities who had to discern what a contestant's secret was. Mm-hmm. The daughter of Audra and Maisie Rice of Stanzel, Iowa vicinity. Joyce looks back on her lengthy journey in show business that continues to this day. She credits her parents, her farm roots, the one-room country school she attended, and rural neighbors as a great foundation of support and wisdom. Joyce, we welcome you to the 1950s Fun Chat.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. We're so glad to have you here, and we have a lot to cover. And so we'll just start. As we chat with Joyce, we'll learn there is much more to this baton twirling farm gal who was able to toss a baton to the level of 60 feet and accurately catch it. Joyce, please take us back to the beginning of developing your twirling skill and maybe mention how you practiced and how the ability of that skill expanded to other twirling abilities.
Well, I guess it has to go back to the country school. It was a tiny country school, one teacher, all 8 grades, and there we were. But the event that led to me being excited about baton twirling happened at that small country school. One night at PTA meeting, and I love PTA meetings because after the PTA meeting, there'd be entertainment. The neighbor lady was quite an organizer. She not only had meetings, she would have entertainment, she would have plays in that tiny space. I was thinking last night, how in the world was there room? But there was. But this particular night, a girl from town was the entertainment. Now, I grew up 10 miles from a town of 2,000. Hardly ever went to town because there was a little country store that we did to for groceries and stuff. So anyway, she was introduced. I heard Stars and Stripes Forever. And at that moment, I saw a shiny silver stick in her hand. She started to move in beautiful circles up and down, around from hand to hand, so fast. I couldn't believe it. She tossed it, it spun, and she caught it. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my life. I hadn't seen much, I have to admit, but that happened just at the right time. I was 9 years old. And anyway, I ended up taking baton lessons from her after my grandmother bought a baton for me from the twirler's father, who knew how to get them. It was a big process back then. And this all started happening in 1950. So I've had lots of experiences in 1950.
Yes.
Anyway, I fortunately, she didn't know any fancy twirls. She just knew the basics and a few twirls using the basics. So I took a lesson. I grew up very poor, by the way, but I didn't know it because all the neighbors were the same. So I don't know if you can relate to how things were back then. You're younger than I am, but still, it was tough in, the late 40s and early 50s. So I would take a baton lesson every other week. I think they were probably 50 cents at the most, maybe not even that. And so I'd have 2 weeks. And that basic twirl I learned, she only taught me one at a time, became a propeller because I wanted so much to make that thing spin. It was probably the beginning of my love of bling, right?
Okay, sure.
So that's how it all started.
Well, Joyce, in that 2 weeks time, between lesson to lesson, how did you go about practicing and working on that skill?
Well, I just had a baton in my hand most of the time. And my mom, another kind of lucky thing for me, we had a tiny house and the kitchen was very crowded. So I didn't cook until I got married. She said, no, stay out. So I was outside with my dad a lot. And so In the wintertime, of course, I'd have to practice in the house, in the living room, which was tiny too. And so the basics, that worked well. And by the time I raised ducks so that I could pay tuition to go to town school in 8th grade.
Oh.
Because at that time, anyone who had a country school open, you couldn't go to town without paying tuition.
Nice.
But I wanted to get in the high school band. That was my first goal. Oh my gosh. Because that's where this girl had performed.
Uh-huh.
So I raised the ducks, got enough money for the tuition. Of course, my folks fed the ducks.
Yes. Yes.
But anyway, I went to town school in 8th grade. And then I could practice in the girls' restroom
Oh.
at junior high.
Uh-huh.
So, I always found a place in the wintertime, which you guys had a lot longer winter in North Dakota than I did in Iowa. But, well, kind of, not much different, just colder degrees. But yeah, I always found a place. Then when I got in high school, I couldn't practice much in the gym because it was full of boys playing basketball and stuff. So I practiced in the hallway and then on the stage, any place I could, any place.
You were an epitome, and probably still are, of where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your
That's
basic
exactly
teacher,
it. Well, I watched my parents work all the time,
Mhm.
and they didn't hate it. They just got things done.
Mhm.
And so my feeling is if something needs done, just do it.
Exactly, right.
And when I was when I won the first state championship, which was the first year in Iowa, I was eligible to go to the national, and my parents took me. Well, anybody else would have quit right then, because here were girls tossing the baton, spinning around 6 times and catching behind their back.
Ooh.
And I'm just standing there, never moving. But for some reason, it inspired me.
Sure.
It inspired me. And I knew every morning I got up, I knew I had to practice twice as much as those girls to catch them, because I was going to catch them.
Right. So did you have any other teachers besides this beginning one that was able to show you some advanced skills? Or you just watched?
I took a few lessons from a lady in Des Moines, but I learned the most. I would go to a twirling camp in the summer called Smith Baldridge, and for a week, and I would learn all the twirls. Then I'd go home and practice them.
Good for you.
And so the next year, 2 years later, the judge at the contest, by then I just, stuck them all together. I didn't know how to construct routines. And he asked me who my teacher was, who had constructed my routine. And I said, I did. And he offered for me to fly to Janesville, Wisconsin, and he would construct my routine for me.
Nice.
And so I stayed with his wife and him for 3 days, and he put all of my twirls in a logical sequence.
Yeah.
Free. That was free for 3 days.
He saw your talent.
He saw potential. He saw potential, and he probably saw this kid will work her head off. when he found out I grew up on a farm, he knew the work ethic. And so it was that routine that I won the championship with. However, he would travel all across the United States picking out potential champions.
Oh.
because he had a baton manufacturing business, publishing business, who's who in baton twirling, drum major, all of that stuff. Don Sartell published and made. So wouldn't it behoove him to have the national champion every year?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So when I was competing with, the top 8 were all he'd put the routines together.
Oh.
So it was still, just because he helped you doesn't mean you're going to win.
Sure.
Right.
Well, everyone has a good day and everyone might have a poorer day,
Right.
and the day
Right.
that needs to be good too.
And it's up to us to put in the work.
Mhm, exactly.
How
So
many times did you go to national competition?
I was trying to think about that last night. I think I went to 3 before I won.
Okay.
No, wait a minute. The first year hardly counts
Okay.
because it was just a little girl from Wyoming and I were the only ones that just stood there and put the baton around us.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
but anyway, so that year, the next time I went, I was I don't know. I said to myself, well, I'm above the midline.
Mhm.
Then let's see. Okay, that's 2, 3. The third year, I was 5th. And then the 4th year, I won.
Was this all during your high school years?
Yes. In
Okay.
the 50s. Because
All
I
right.
won in 59.
Yes. Well, and then did that inspire you to be a part of the Iowa State University marching band, or why choose Iowa State?
Well, that's kind of a long story too, because Iowa State would have band day. And so they would invite bands from, Iowa, the ones who wanted to come. And Greenfield was only like 90 some miles from Iowa State, Ames. So we would go, and I was the featured twirler because I was kind of it. There was a line, but nobody wanted to practice like I did.
Mm-hmm.
So Mr. Pearsall, the band director, spotted me. So he would have me come to Iowa State. I think I started maybe my sophomore year and perform like at a basketball game.
Okay.
Or a little spot at one of the football games. So a lot of people who graduated from Iowa State the same year I did thought I'd spent 7 years at Iowa State because they'd seen me, perform.
Sure. Were there other twirlers from other high school bands that had any skills close to what you had?
None of them worked like I did.
Oh, okay.
And
Deep
that's
philosophy.
why I say it all comes. I learned when I won that I could get what I wanted if I wanted it enough and worked enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that started my whole thing. My mission in life is to help everyone get what they want.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about other twirling skills that you developed because you had the basis of baton twirling.
Well, rope spinning, whip cracking,
Ooh,
Indian hoop dancing.
really?
I just did, anything that involved hoops, because since I started young at Iowa State, and then I got the scholarship and performed a lot there throughout the year, I worked on new routines. So I developed hoop baton routine, flag baton routine, saber knife routine, 2, 3, and 4 batons, and 2 and 3 fire.
Mhm.
So it was just that I could contribute more was the purpose.
Mhm. Have you ever taught young girls?
I started teaching when I was 13,
Mhm. Okay.
a lot. And that was wonderful because it really drove home why you practice.
Mm.
Because so many of those little girls, they'd be all excited to come learn baton twirling. I'd teach them and I'd create new twirls for them.
Mhm.
So it was work, on my part. So I was always devastated the next week when they couldn't do it as well as when they learned it,
Oh.
Oh,
because it was fun. See, I think I approached it as work and going beyond that big hill that I would climb to get the cows.
mhm.
It
Tell
was
us about that experience, Joyce.
about what?
Tell us about that experience when you went, how that hill on your farm pasture became a pivotal part of how you learned that you had to, in order to move forward in life.
Well, like I say, I grew up 10 miles from a town of 2,000, which we didn't go to that much because of the country store.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Stanzel. Let me tell you a quick thing about Stanzel. It
Okay.
was like a mile the other direction. And Mr. Stanzel, why it has a strange name, Mr. Stanzel invented radiator stop leak and made
Oh,
tons of money, got a patent on it, all of that. And
Yeah.
it was his product. So he wanted to build a town. And that little town, it had a well. Drink from this well and you'll live forever.
that was
Sure.
the slogan.
But he had a locker plant, grocery store, restaurant. I'm trying to think back. Even had a barber shop at one time, and a gas station.
And this is in Southwest Iowa.
Yeah.
Does it exist?
No.
No.
They finally, a church bought the buildings, and
Oh.
the smaller buildings went defunct. I don't
Uh-huh.
know. But
Hmm.
it was, they'd have outdoor movies.
Mhm.
Okay, now what was I telling? The hill. Okay.
Yes.
So that was my life. Stanzel, which Stanzel didn't come until I was probably about the time I started twirling.
Hmm.
But my world was very, very small. And I knew that in order to get what I wanted, I needed to work hard. I watched my folks do this.
Mhm.
And I would climb this hill. And when I get up on top of the hill, the wind was always blowing. That's why the windmill thing, if there's a windmill
Mhm.
up there, it would have gone crazy. So the wind blowing through my hair, and I'm looking, and I'm hearing the meadowlarks sing.
Mhm.
I look
Mhm.
down on pastures and places, and I just thought, there's a whole world out there.
Mm.
How far and how high can I go?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
Yeah.
every time I kind of get discouraged, I'd remember that feeling. It's a memory snapshot,
Mhm.
that the hill.
And tell us, Joyce, how let's go keep moving forward with the progression of your baton twirling with Iowa State University. Then what happened after that?
Well, back up.
Oh, okay.
At Iowa State, what caused you to major in home economics education?
I was
Because I
curious.
didn't know how to cook.
Oh, okay.
Did that help you?
And back then, girls didn't have a lot of choices. I really kind of wanted to be a psychologist.
Agreed.
But my folks, girls don't do that.
Uh-huh.
So I could be a teacher. And I knew a lot about teaching because most of the way through high school, I would teach about 100 kids on the weekends.
Mm.
And I
Teach them
knew
what?
baton.
What were you Oh, that many at baton?
In
Mhm.
Greenfield, and then I go to Creston, where the boy who wrote the article that
Yes.
you read is from
Mhm.
Creston.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Creston that Jack Mills had a radio program. Well, I guess he basically ran KSIB. And one day he said, Joyce Rice is going to perform at the 4th of July celebration. And she's going to do fire.
Yes.
I had never done fire. I mean, that's how things keep pushing you forward.
Uh-huh.
So my mom said, oh, Jack Mills. I mean, he ran that little neighborhood, basically, that whole area. Jack Mills said, you were going to do fire. We've got to figure out how we're going to do it.
Yes. Yes.
My dad, he could fix anything. So we turned to my dad. He made these batons. He said, do you have any old batons? So we took some old batons. He drilled holes in the down, my hand was here and then the holes here,
Mhm.
and wrapped asbestos around the ends and tied it with wire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the first night, we thought we would see what happened with the fire batons to practice.
Yes.
So I'm out in the yard. They're lit. And they go, you just move them. They make a terrible sound.
Mm.
And so my mom said, twirl it. Twirl it.
Yeah.
And so I did a little, talk about scary.
Uh-huh.
But Jack Mills said I was going to twirl fire batons.
So you
So I did.
And it worked out well for you?
Yeah, it did.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared to death, but I did it and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
But so one thing led to another. Now at Iowa State, since I was on a full scholarship, they had me performing at all the alumni events.
Mm-hmm.
And they would also have me perform at the Big 8 basketball tournament in Kansas City over Christmas vacation. So that I would work really hard to get my routine ready for over the holidays. And it was through that I got a lot of work from, there was a Bureau of Lectures and Concert Artists
Okay.
in Lawrence, Kansas. And they contacted me my junior year and wanted me to do school assemblies.
Mm-hmm.
And actually hired me to speak on mental discipline and physical fitness as I performed different routines, 45-minute, I would talk a minute and a half, perform a minute and a half, talk a minute and a half, perform a minute. Whoa, 2 years was all. I got anemia, all kinds, and I was used to practicing hard, but I would do 2 or 3 of those a day throughout Kansas and Oklahoma and all of that, plus carrying my sound system, my microphone. And back then they weren't itty bitty things. They weighed 45 pounds, that type of thing. But it was a wonderful experience. And that's when I found that's it.
It was time to move on to something else?
No,
Oh.
I learned that I wanted to inspire, motivate everyone
Okay.
to do their best, to be their best, and to get what their potential and their talents will bring them.
Good for you.
And
Okay. After that experience, then, when did you begin with the Harlem Globetrotters? And tell us a little bit about that.
oh, there's rodeos in between.
Oh, okay.
When I performed on I've Got a Secret, got 2 phone calls. My mom got in Iowa. That's when the operator, who, oh, the baton twirler. Okay, I'll put you through to them. And so my mom, while I was in New York City, she got a call from one was a fella named John Cat Thompson from Utah, wanted me to perform at a girls' drill team competition. Now, Mom was scared to death of the cat name. What man uses cat for a name? Well, come to find out, he was an All-American basketball player who had, I guess, I don't know what you'd call it, a sports business, selling basketballs and all of that equipment. And the other was the fellow who had the high school rodeo championship thing he wanted to have me perform at. So that started my rodeo thing. I performed at that. Couldn't ride a horse, but they would have this 8 by 8 foot piece of plywood in the center of the arena. I'd run out and do my baton act, which had already grown to, a good 5 minutes.
And that included throwing that baton 60 feet in the air? And how many times did you twirl around waiting for it to come back to you?
Well, that was in my, now let's see, I don't know if I did it with 1 baton or not. But with 2 batons, yes, I toss it up at 11 o'clock, let go of it, and do the other baton, and then catch it.
Did you ever have a time when you didn't catch it?
I had one time at Iowa State where it went up in the top of the arena and it hit something and came lickety split down. Just like a bullet. It hit the floor so hard, it bounced up in the air and I caught it.
Did it look like it was part of the act?
Yes. Everyone said, how did you do that?
Yeah.
God did it.
Good eye-hand coordination.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
Wouldn't you? This is my chance. I'll just catch it.
And moving on to the Harlem Globetrotters, I'm really curious about that.
Okay, that was later. That was in the 60s. And let's see, who saw me? I don't know who saw me but an agent called and wanted to know if I would perform opening act for the Harlem Globetrotters. Well, I'd only seen them once in my life at that point. I was living in Chicago, and the fella I'd seen perform did rope spinning and whip cracking, Bud Carlisle. So I saw him do that, so I thought, okay, I can probably do that. By then, my daughter had been born, and my marriage experience was not wonderful. My husband and I determined if we had enough money, because he farmed with his parents, and so if we could make enough money we could buy our own land. And I knew that would be better.
Mhm.
He knew it would be better. So I jumped at the chance of working with the Globetrotters and making the money so we could buy more land.
Sure, sure.
And so my daughter was a year old. I took off in my car with a playpen in the trunk and her bedded down in the back seat. No cell phone. It was a lot different than it
Mhm.
is.
No
Mhm.
seatbelts.
No, no.
Mhm.
Well, no, they didn't have seatbelts, did they? No.
I
You know,
think it's 64. Yeah.
at my age, it's hard to remember what happened when. I can only tell how old my daughter was at the time.
Mhm.
So,
Then.
did she take to baton twirling?
No,
Your daughter?
no.
Okay.
She just said, what was it she said? I think more of myself than that.
Oh.
Because I always had a big bruise someplace.
Oh,
I broke my nose, got black eyes, cut lips. This was, when I was practicing all the time.
Sure, because of the baton.
Yeah, because I wanted just one more time, even though I'm tired.
I'm going back to the Globetrotters again. Okay, they're world famous. They traveled the world. Where did you all travel with them?
Well, we traveled every state in the United States and every province in Canada except for 2, Northwest Territories and what was the other one? What's the one? Yukon.
the Yukon?
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked in Australia with them, and that was it. But I drove all the time except when we were overseas, and that was Australia.
Did you get to become close friends with any of the Globetrotters?
Not so much, because it was Leon Hillard was from Chicago and a great dribbler. Oh my gosh, my daughter's calling.
That's fine.
He was a terrific dribbler, and he would help. The second year, I got a Winnebago motorhome because I knew my daughter needed more. The first year, she was a baby. So he would help me park it, and a couple times. Meadowlark Lemon was from Michigan, and that's when there was some racial problems then. And Curly Neal was from North Carolina, a wonderful guy. And those were the 3 main ones. But Geese Osby was the first year I worked with the Globetrotters. And he was a real natural comic, which Meadowlark had to work at it, But Geese he would grab Rhonda in that's my daughter's name, in her stroller and take off across the basketball floor. And she has her little white pigtails sticking out, and white can be, and him pushing her, and she's laughing. She loved it. The people would just die laughing. And one other time he got her, and there was a little, must have been close to Easter, because there was a little bunny that would hop, a little toy bunny that, you could wind it up and it'd hop. And so he set that in front of her. And she was, going after that. But yeah, it was fun. But, I miss being home because it was a 6-month tour. Long tour.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Well, Joyce, we're nearing the end of our fun chat. of all these wonderful experiences.
Talk all the time. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So, Janine, before we do that, is there some time we can ask about her motivational speaking? Like, condense that or not?
Well, how about we wrap in a minute? Can we get something about that in there? And your book?
Oh, my book?
Mm-hmm.
Think it, work it, do it. Of course, work is always in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what you think determines your actions, and your actions determine your destiny.
Yes.
All right.
Think it, work it, do it. It's just what I believed from the time I was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and you have a website also where people can see about your beautiful athleticism and your inspiration.
yes, it is joycerice.com.
Okay, that's easy, folks. JoyceRice.com. Yes, and you do if people are interested in having you come to their event for motivational speaking, is that where they would reach you?
Yes,
okay.
I would love to. I moved here the last few years and built a barndominium. And so with all of the stuff happening, I haven't really got my footing here in Texas. And so if anyone in Texas is watching, do you have any place you'd like a really fun speaker?
Yes, exactly.
And it's kind of business speaking, although I would love to do college and get the kids on the track and show them all the options they have. You know.
When you speak, do you also do any twirling or whip cracking or knife throwing?
Yes.
Or
I do. I do 30 seconds of baton and that only builds from the basics. I tell them how important the basics are, learning those, most important thing.
Yes.
Then you can create and innovate, develop a program. And so I demonstrate that. And I quickly go through the basics and I say, now I want you to watch closely and see if you identify the basics. I said, don't worry, I'll help you out because we're going to go fast. Really fast.
Yes.
Okay, we're ready.
Well, just as the windmill has been inspirational to us, so is a hill and a farm been inspirational to you. And that's what is wonderful in life, when you can find something to hang on to and that just really resonates with you and to make you into a better person. That's how great opportunities in life happen because of that. Joyce, we thank you so much for being our guest today. It's been wonderful. What a story. What a story you've had, because you knew hard work is so important in order to achieve goals. Yes. Thank you. So, Jackie, it's time to wrap up this program and to consider moving forward into the next week. My goodness, we're going to be in June and all kinds of fun summer things happening and new guests to tell their stories of the 50s. So how can you wrap up our program today?
Just to remind our viewers about the blue thumbs up button, please do touch that, as well as the red subscribe button. So we appreciate that. And tell your friends, even your relatives, about the 1950s Fun Chat. So until next time, toodaloo.
Bye-bye.